Привit moi druzy. Hello, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. I'm a professor who tries to help you understand what's going on in the Ukraine war. So, most recently, what's happened is that the ICC, the International Criminal Court, has put out a notice that they're putting out a warrant for Vladimir Putin, and people are rejoicing, saying, "Oh, he's going to get it." Slow down. Let's try to understand what is going on and why it's going on, and then what's likely going to happen. So I'm going to try to cover that here. So this is the actual webpage from the International Criminal Court. Situation in Ukraine. ICC, International Criminal Court, judges issue arrest warrants against Vladimir Putin and this lady that we never heard of. This lady that we never heard of was behind these children being taken into Russia. So children have been taken to Russia from Ukraine, forcibly deported. How many? Well, so if you just Google it, you'll see 6,000 children or 16,000 children. And if you go a little bit further, you'll find, if you do some research, this is the Toronto Star, and it's just a couple days ago, more than 700,000 children have been evacuated from Ukraine, according to Russia's Interdepartmental Coordination Headquarters. According to Russia, not just according to Ukraine. So that's pretty significant. Now, I have 6 children of my own. If one of my children was missing in my own city, I'd be flipping out. So you can just imagine what parents in a war-torn country, while the Russians are trying to kill them, think when their children are removed and they have no idea where they are. By the way, this is one of the reasons why Russia needs to lose, be defeated on the battlefield, be made to say uncle, so that the agreements are such that, yes, and you're getting all these children back, and you're not going to fight about that or, stonewall or not do anything along those lines. This is why Russia has to lose more than any other reason. I know some people are talking about, like, I just want Russia to implode. No, you don't want Russia to implode and have warlords, cutting up parts of the country and in charge of this part of that part of the other, for a couple of reasons. One, you're never getting the children back, but there's nuclear weapons there as well that you don't want falling into the wrong hands. You don't want Russia to implode. You want them to be defeated and then have to rebuild and then have to work through all these agreements. Okay, back to the story. So more than 700 children have been evacuated, and what evacuation means is not entirely clear. Some could have gone, willingly. That's probably a small portion. A lot have just been moved forcibly against their will. Okay, so the crimes were committed in Ukrainian occupied territory, at least from 24 February forward, and Mr. Putin bears individual criminal responsibility. Now, what does that mean practically? We're going to come back to that in just a moment. Let's talk about Ms. Eklevsina Lvova-Belova. She's the Commissioner for Children's Rights of the Office of the President of Russian Federation and is responsible for the war crime of unlawful deportation of population of children. That's unlawful transfer. Okay, and again, committed from the same dates. Now, it goes on and says there are reasonable grounds to believe that each suspect bears responsibility for the war crime of unlawful deportation of the population. The chamber considered that these warrants should be in secret to protect the victims, but they also realized that public awareness of the warrants may contribute to the prevention of further commission of crimes. Now, that's really interesting because, they're trying to weigh in the balance what the privacy rights as opposed to the good that will come from not doing it. Or not doing it privately and doing it publicly, so that it warns, like, don't do any more of this because this is now a war crime and you're aware. Okay, so let's try to just take a step back and understand what's happened. So Putin has a warrant. He can't really travel into Europe as safely as he once did if he wanted to. He's not going to go somewhere and likely get kidnapped. And it's not like the ICC can actually do anything. They don't have any real power. So they can issue the warrant, but that doesn't mean that anybody's going to show up unless, there is a scenario where something could happen. And that is that the Russian oligarchs gang up on him and say, do you want to get thrown off this building, or do you want to go with these nice young men in their uniforms that are going to bring you to the ICC? I doubt that's going to happen, but it could happen. The moral implication is very important. That's first and foremost. The idea that something has been said that says this is wrong, this needs to stop, this is a war crime. So it's kind of like the Nuremberg Trials, except the ICC is a little bit more than that. And that's part of the problem here as well. Here is an article about the influence of the Nuremberg Trials on the International Criminal Court from the Jackson Center. And it was talking about how the ICC's predecessors are the Nuremberg and Tokyo tribunals created by the Allies after World War II. And it kind of leaves the impression that, well, the victors are making justice, but the victors were actually trying to say, no, some things are just wrong, crimes against humanity. And so out of that grew the International Law Commission, and it's within the UN General Assembly. And the International Criminal Court is something that some people really like and think that's a great thing, and then some people look at it as like, maybe that's too much unregulated power, they shouldn't have that, and they look at it a little bit skeptically. I'm in that latter camp, and I'll explain why. As an American, Americans kind of helped build the International Criminal Court, and then they're kind of like, I'm not sure that this is the great idea. Because, for example, what if an American, I don't know, let's say a senator did something and the ICC wanted that American to stand before the ICC? The Americans are not really very likely to say, sure, take him, go ahead. No, they're going to say, he's one of our citizens, you're not taking him. Okay, Putin's going to have the same kind of idea here. He's going to say, I'm not going to that. Nobody's going to make me go to that. And so you're going to see that kind of thing. So what's actually happening with the International Criminal Court, it's almost like when the Pope makes a pronouncement, it's not, and I'm not trying to be offensive to Catholics, please hear that. It's not, most people can safely ignore it. But he's made a moral pronouncement that is going to have some weight because of the moral pronouncement itself. That's the value in the ICC, not actually the enforcement. There will be some kind of Nuremberg-like trial probably afterwards, I believe, but it won't. It's not necessarily that the ICC's pronouncement here, the warrant for Putin's arrest, is going to have any actual meaning itself. Now, as I was thinking about this, I was watching Vlad yesterday, and he said something really, really profound about this, and I'm going to play this because I think it helps us with our understanding about how the ICC actually works.
Only independent insofar as they are weak, and they can only transcend their weakness insofar as they lose their independence. It's true of the United Nations too, right? The United Nations is not accidentally weak. Right? It's weak because the only way it could get stronger is if it further lost independence, right? And the only way it could gain further independence is if it gave up even the limited powers that it has. So this is an insoluble principle of
Okay, so, for example, people complain about the UN isn't doing anything. Same thing with the ICC. The UN, well, but there's a moral authority that comes with making a statement, taking a vote, and seeing 140 countries to 7 with 30 or 40 abstaining, saying, this is wrong, don't do that. But if they had the power to do that, that would rattle the cages of most sovereign nations that are like, you know what, you shouldn't necessarily be telling us what we can and can't do. So there is a value in the moral authority of the ICC, but is anything practically going to happen? Not anytime soon, so don't get your hopes up with that. But on the other side of this, certainly, and the moral statement is a really powerful statement in support of Ukraine. So I want you to understand that that's what's really at play here with the ICC warrant for Putin. I hope that helps you understand how this works. But Vlad's idea that they're powerful when they're weak, because they're not really telling, they can't really tell other countries what to do, so these countries can support it where they might have a allergic reaction to it if they had the power to actually do something. I think that's a very valuable insight that he's added to this particular discussion. Okay, that's all that I have. If you have questions about it, I'd like to hear what you have to say, or how you view this, or where I might be wrong, because I don't have the corner of the market on the truth. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.